Hello there, and welcome to Pink Milk, your Star Wars podcast for us superfans.
And those of us who are forced to listen to them.
Today is someday, and someday we're talking queer dads in space.
Wait, what?
That's right, queer dads in space. Get ready, because it's time to drink up.
Drink up.
Places, the star has arrived. The star has arrived.
Well, hello, Star.
It's not me, babe. It's you.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Hello there. My name is Brian, your host. With me, as always, is my better half and your better host, Tom.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, there we go. 3 hellos. Y'all have no idea. We're coming up to a year of podcasting. I would say the hello there, welcome to Pink Milk part of the show takes a good 15 minutes every time. This part, I think we're on, another 20 minutes. Almost an hour to give you a minute of audio.
It takes a long time to really get that hello going.
We are very passionate. We are artists. We take our craft very seriously. And sometimes, it really does. It just takes a minute, Thomas.
Hello.
What is that song? Hello.
Lionel Richie?
No. I was thinking of Adele.
I'm actually thinking of a movie, and it was about a bunch of people who worked too hard, so they had to go to a hospital. Is that politically correct when I said that?
Who's in said movie, Thomas?
Robin Williams, and then there was another guy. And anyway...
Oh, I know that actor, that other guy. I totally know who that is.
It was that other guy, and he kept going, hello, hello. Oh, hey, how you doing? Hello. It was... really, really funny. So check it out. Whatever the name of that movie is, you guys go out and find it. Check it out. You're going to love it. You're going to think of me going, hello.
Yeah, tweet me if you know what that is, because Robin Williams and that other guy doesn't really help me. But
Truth be told, I think it was called Crazy People. I think that was the name of the movie.
That must have been the 80s.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of tweeting and politically incorrectness, you should follow us on our socials at...
because we're crazy people.
And sometimes a little politically incorrect.
One of us is.
Not me.
It's not always the same one, though.
No, you can find us on all of our social media at Serving Pink Milk on both Twitter and Instagram. But more importantly, please visit us at Apple Podcasts. And
I'd like them to just vid us. Could they just vid us?
I'm fine with vid us. You can vid us at Apple Podcasts, and please take the time to give us a written review and a 5-star review, and click that little subscribe button so you know every time Pink Milk arrives at your doorstep. It's like the olden times when the milkman came, only we're a little more fabulous and we bring you pink milk. And you're not going to actually have a baby from us. Isn't that the expression? Is that the milkman's son?
Yeah, it is.
I kind of wish I lived in those days.
Good times.
So I wonder, Thomas, what kind of sexual intonation are we talking about there? I mean, that was blatant part. But you said hello. I wonder what you mean by hello. Because we're queer, therefore everything...
And we're here.
And we're here. And you're not so near.
But we're loving every minute of it.
But you hear us in your ear.
So that brings us to our today's panel.
No, but there's a conversation towards the end of this very long episode about everything queer people say has some sort of double meaning in the media, and therefore children cannot listen because they're talking about sex. He said hello. Did you hear the way he said hello? He's trying to steal your children. And your baby Yodas. Which, Ian, just so you're aware, it's a prim.
It's a prim.
When you yell at me, I learn. I know it's because you love me.
Okay, Tyra Banks. Check that reference out too.
Yeah, no, so this is a little bit longer of an episode for us, so this may be a multi-parter for you listeners, but honestly, it is such an amazing conversation. We had set out to do a Mandalorian rewatch and look at it through our queer lens. However, I feel like this is the second part of a 4-part episodic adventure, I guess we could say. And in part 2, I think we kind of discovered what this little queer roundtable is about. And I would say it's less blow by blow of
blow by blow. Yes, it was definitely less that, but it was more taking a look at the episodes and then how it translated or was translated through the eye of a queer lens.
Yes. Like, it's not, we don't go so much this scene, we do this, this, and this, which is what I thought was going to happen, but it's really more or less like what it's like to walk the shoes of the Mandalorian. We talk about more of an emotional journey through this show, which honestly is really fascinating and really kind of exciting. It was an unexpected, as my Afro-wearing friend Bob Ross would say. It was a pleasant surprise, or something like that.
And I'm just going to say it's eye-opening and educational.
Yeah, honestly, we're looking at Star Wars very differently now with all of our little found family in this little podcast. I am so honored that these people have come. I feel as though I'm growing as a person.
I agree.
Week by week, and I'm really, really grateful to all these people because they have tremendous things to say. I'm very excited for all of you to listen, and all those wonderful things.
So that said, let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Drink up.
Drink up.
Drink up.
Well, hello there. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome listeners to our Queer Roundtable. We are super stoked. I'm going to use a new adjective because last week excited was the word of the day. So today's word's going to be stoked. I'm very stoked to have all these people, and we have another person joining our table today. So I'm super happy about that. Look at that, 2 adjectives in a row. We're going to introduce ourselves again, and let's meet our new friend, Scott. Scott, what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Hello, everybody. So my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith. I love it. I was younger and impressionable, and I think it hits all the plot points of just excitement and betrayal and all these crazy things, even though it's still kind of like George Lucas's cheesy way of doing things in some parts of it. The Republic era was kind of like my favorite thing, and then seeing how it transitioned to the Empire stuff was just the best. I still love it, obviously, to this day. Favorite thing ever.
Very nice. Hope, let's go with you.
Hi, I'm Hope, everyone. My favorite Star Wars movie is Rogue One, closely followed by the Clone Wars movie for kind of the same reasons, is because like animation is so important to me, and that was my entryway into the fandom. But like when it comes to Rogue One, it was really the first time they melded the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy. They melded animation by bringing in characters like Saul Guerrero. They brought in comic characters and book characters. Like it was the first time that they melded the canon together, and it felt like this should be the canon gold standard in the Disney era at all times, and it's what Shra should have been. And I love that movie. I love Rogue One so much.
Rogue One was the first movie that we ever took our son Jack to. It was made me so happy. Mark P, there's that laugh. You just called yourself out to go next. I love it.
All right. So while I absolutely love The Empire Strikes Back, I have to say that my favorite is Return of the Jedi. And that would be just because obviously I was a little older, it was by the time that the trilogy ended, and then seeing those characters mature as well, get to that point, and have everything that we've seen come together in that one scene over the Sarlacc pit, and just seeing Luke do his thing was just amazing. And just everything in that movie. I mean, just, seeing the Emperor get defeated, Vader just finally, fight back, and long before the no was added. And I mean, but aside from that, it's one of my favorite. It just reminds me of so much. And of course, Ewoks, because I love Ewoks. So there's that.
Our unsung heroes.
Yeah.
Emma, how about for you? What was your favorite movie?
So for me, it was Return of the Jedi as well. Very much for like personal reasons. I mean, it was the very first one that I ever saw. My babysitter used to put it on the VHS when I was really young. So it was the first Star Wars movie that I ever saw. And so it's very special to me for sentimental reasons. But also, as I've gotten more into the franchise and I've seen all of the films obviously by now, putting it in context, I really liked the character development of Luke, like getting to see him mature and go from being like kind of a wussy himbo into something more. And also, and of course, Leia's moment of breaking her oppression was just like, and that was very emphasized in conversations I had with my mother as a child. I was raised by a feminist. I was named after Emma Goldman, actually. And so she really encouraged me to see Leia as a role model. And so seeing that moment of strength in her was just, it made a huge impression on me as a child. I actually have a tattoo on my arm of Leia that says Hutt Slayer on it.
Nice.
So it's like really important to my life. So
hell yeah.
I was just gonna bring up Hutt Slayer. I loved that they brought that in. That was like such an empowering title. It was really, really great. Toby, Kayla Met, how about for you? Kayla Met, I apologize. I think we all said your name about 15 different ways last week.
I'm so used to it. It's not even funny. You're good. You want to go first? Or
No, you go first.
My favorite Star Wars movie is definitely Empire Strikes Back. When I was really young and my dad was showing me all the movies for the first time, I had demanded to watch them in order. So Phantom Menace to Return of the Jedi, much to his chagrin at the time. And when I had enjoyed the movies a lot up until that point, but for some reason, when I hit Empire Strikes Back, it changed everything in my mind. It was just so, I don't know, it's so, it's the perfect Star Wars in my mind. I don't even know how else to phrase it. It just hits everything that it needs to hit. And I don't know, I can quote the whole thing back and forth. Like, you watched it with me and you were so annoyed. You told me to be quiet.
I'm Toby, and my favorite Star Wars movie is Revenge of the Sith. It's the only movie of the entire series that has made me cry, which is, I feel like, a weird one. But it's a beautiful movie. There was no point where I felt like it was going a little too slow. I have a personal love for Obi-Wan Kenobi and everything that he ever touches in any movie, everything that he exists, and I'm just like, yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I obviously am gonna love that movie just a little bit extra, but the dynamics in the movie were good, the effects in the movie were really good, and all around it's just like a peak movie.
Obi-Wan is my favorite character. You have great taste.
He's also my favorite character. I love him. I have a custom Obi-Wan Kenobi Starbucks cup. What can I say?
I have a funny story. I met Ewan McGregor at a Starbucks in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Yes. I have a picture of him. I have a picture of him framed in my living room.
Nice.
That's
very nice.
Is he?
Yes,
and I'm sure very handsome in person.
Yes, I was too nervous. Me and my buddy, he walked right past us, and we were both kind of like, "Wait a minute, isn't that Obi-Wan Kenobi?" And so his girlfriend actually was just like, "Well, yeah, he's in Moulin Rouge," and I was like, "I don't know what that is." And so, so she was like, "I'm gonna go talk to him," and she was like, "Are you Ewan McGregor?" And he was like, "Oh, yes, I am." And so we were both like, zoop, right up next to him. We're like, "Hi, we love Star Wars. How are you today?" It was such a fun moment.
I knew him from Moulin Rouge. I saw Moulin Rouge, weirdly enough, I saw Moulin Rouge before I processed Star Wars as an entity. So I was in love with Christian from Moulin Rouge, and then Star Wars just made him better.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, please tell me you've seen that movie since.
I have never seen it.
Oh my
It's a really good movie. We have to rectify that right away.
Oh
you
my.
need to see that movie.
Yes.
Oh, so now I want to watch it. Oh, see, that makes it worth it. Now I'm probably going to watch it.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You're welcome, because that song will be stuck in your head forever. And it has Kylie Minogue, so you put Kylie Minogue in anything, and it's going to instantly be better.
Oh, yes.
Right.
When my wife and I were on our honeymoon, I took her to Toronto, the romantic city of Toronto, Canada. Not really. I hate it, but I took her there because she visited it once and loved it. So, and that was like my wedding gift to her. So we spent our honeymoon there at this really fancy hotel, and we got married in the fall, so we did our honeymoon over the Christmas break.
Yeah.
So on New Year's Eve, we were in this fancy hotel, and we turned on the TV, and they were playing Moulin Rouge, and whoever had programmed it had actually timed it so that the crescendo of Come What May would hit at midnight and create this romantic.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, we cried.
Oh my
we
God.
both cried. We were both crying in front of Moulin Rouge on New Year's Eve in a hotel room in Toronto.
As we should.
That's beautiful.
It was a very romantic honeymoon.
Hey, Thomas.
Well, I had
No. First,
Oh,
where's my honeymoon? Never got one.
Wow.
This is your honeymoon.
Tired.
Welcome
Oh my God.
to your honeymoon.
Should we leave you two alone?
This is awkward. I've been over here waiting for the honeymoon. You've been
Who's
so many
supposed to throw
places,
the
Jim.
honeymoon? All right, Thomas, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? I'm wondering if it's changed after almost a year of podcasting and talking to all like great people like this.
No, it hasn't. It was number 1, which is also known as number
4.
4. But I'm calling it number 1 because I'm older. To piggyback on what Emma said, it has sentimental value for me. I sat there in the movie theater when this little movie called Star Wars, now we have all different names to them, but we called it Star Wars back then. And I remember literally sitting in the row. It was a birthday party of a good family friend. I remember the kid's name. His name is Patrick. And being scared to death of this big, dark figure in a black mask. I just remember being scared. And then, and anybody who knows me knows I never do this. I don't like to watch anything more than once. I just don't like, it's not my thing. So, but I remember seeing that movie in the movie theater multiple times, at least three. It was like everybody's birthday party that particular point in time. So I'm going to go with
we just found we found your honeymoon because you've watched all the Star Wars movies many times now, so you're welcome. I've given you like multiple honeymoons.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mark Marquis, how about for you? I think I know this answer though.
Yeah. I agree with Calumet. It's got to be Empire Strikes Back. I saw the original Star Wars in theaters, but my memory of it is kind of fuzzy. I just kind of remember feelings and certain scenes affecting me a certain way. But Empire was the first time that I remember like being in a theater and just being completely wowed by film or by a movie. And after seeing Star Wars, start off on a desert planet and then Empire starts on an ice planet, it's like everything was flipped. And the special effects just really hit me hard. I was a geeky kid who loved special effects. I wanted to figure out how to do them. So the AT-AT walkers and the Tauntauns, and I loved dinosaurs, and they look like furry rat dinosaurs. And I was just really, really, my imagination was really spurred by it. And it was also, you have to, like, we're so accustomed to thinking of it in terms of a second act. But back then it was part 2. It was a sequel. And for the sequel to end on such a strange, like, downer was just unheard of back then. And especially for, like, lighter children's fantasy type films. So that one just had a really big impact on me. I did, my opinion of best movie kind of went back and forth because I did walk out of Return of the Jedi saying that was my favorite one. But over the years, I just kept going back to Empire. It's just, it has a lasting appeal to me.
I love that Empire really trusts its audience as younger children, and it never once talks down to a child. There's a scene in that movie that has forever and will forever affect my life. that one day I'll be ready to talk about it. But yeah, it's a really great movie. It's a great movie. All right, Ian, you're next. Who or what is your favorite Star Wars movie?
It's a tie for me between The Last Jedi and Rogue One. I think Rogue One, like, just like everything about it, the diverse cast, you know, the like balls to the wall story, war film, action sequences, but the end, you know, for a Star Wars movie, but then also for a Disney movie, like killing everyone off, spoiler alert, like it's so awesome. I think
like
it's
Bambi
really
on crack.
Cool. And then with The Last Jedi, you know, we get our first, if you've read any of the Claudia Gray books, I think Princess of Alderaan, we finally get our first queer character on screen. Hell yeah, Admiral Holdo is one of my favorites for sure. And I think she and Leia definitely had a secret relationship at some point. That's my headcanon. But
Would it have to be secret though?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It wouldn't have to be secret.
I think The Last Jedi, like viewing that in the theaters for me, like if I were a kid with the original trilogy and seeing that in theaters, like this was my Empire in theaters. And I just love it so much.
That's awesome.
Can I just say something quickly about the end of Rogue One?
Mm-hmm.
I am so jealous of people who get into Star Wars now and watch, because some people watch the films in story order. So they start with Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so jealous of people who get to do that, because the end of Rogue One, Darth Vader is terrifying. Like absolutely like blood-chillingly. It's like watching a zombie movie, because he's relentless. He's relentless and completely lethal.
Top 3 Vader moments for sure.
Yeah, and it was just like, because I feel like for some people, you know, everyone knows the criticisms of the prequels, blah blah blah. A lot of people feel like people who saw the original trilogy and then saw the prequels kind of felt like Vader was sort of neutered in their minds, or like made to be a little bit less threatening in some ways, or disarmed. And then Rogue One just brings it back to like just him being this absolutely terrifying figure who is just, oh, that's true. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't invest the time into the TV shows, like the ones that are disseminated through.
I thought it looked like very kiddish, and I was like, "Oh, I'm never gonna watch this. Never gonna watch this." And then, like years and years and years, people are just like, "It's the best. It's the best. It's the best." So finally, I watched it. I had like kept up on all my canon, like I knew what happened, but it's phenomenal. So totally get that point of view. Yeah.
I love that Ian never comes in with any hot takes. They never have favorite characters like Holdo. You know, everyone loves Holdo. Like it's just so universal. Like you're just such a, you know, easy access Star Wars fan. It's so wonderful to
I love Laura Dern. When I heard that she was cast, I was like, whoever she is, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? Actually,
Dern is goddess.
Indeed.
She's wonderful.
Indeed.
But you
she
know
learned
what?
it from
Actually,
her mama.
about the character of Holdo, I find that a lot of people, I kind of wish that more people had read Princess of Alderaan, because the way she's portrayed in that book is like, she's so lovable. She's like portrayed as this like creature of wonder who just brings delight to everybody. And so I loved her very, very much. Like I actually read the book before I saw The Last Jedi. And so so I feel like a lot of people who aren't as quite familiar and don't do deep dives, when they watch The Last Jedi and they're kind of like, oh, where did this person come from? I'm like, you are missing out. You are missing out on so much, because seeing that film with the context of knowing who Holdo is and her relationship with Leia, it adds so much.
That is so often the case with most Star Wars, is you see the movie and it's like such a surface level thing. And I love that we get so much more in books. I do, because I'm a book reader. But at the same time, I wish that they would just give us the whole thing in a movie, because then you miss stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And thanks again for everyone coming. It's just a real pleasure, as I said last time, but it's a real pleasure to have you all here. You all have brought a lot of intelligence and wonderful discussion and have helped me rewatch Mandalorian even differently again in my rewatches, even since last week. So thank you for that. And here we go. We're going to start with the fire rapid questions from Mr. Tom Berry, whose Zoom call name right now is Forced to Listen Tom.
I thought it seemed appropriate. All right, we are going to start with chapter 2. And as we know, the opening of chapter 2 was Baby Yoda and Mando kind of tooling down the valley, or a valley, if you will, and boom, he is now a parent. And what I'd like to ask is, what do you do now that you're a parent? I know that in this scenario, it kind of hit home for me. It was when our first son, and as you all know, if you've listened to our podcast, you know that our sons, all 3 of our sons are adopted. But when our first son came to us, it was very much like that. You know, we got a call at 3:30 in the afternoon, at 8:30 in the evening, there he was. There wasn't a lot of time. So it was boom,
Wow.
You're a parent. So I know what we did, and I know what our thoughts are, but I'm curious what each one of your thoughts are.
Our thoughts were, what the hell did we just get into? A little late now.
Oops.
Nice.
Let's start with Scott.
All right. So I don't have as much, obviously, have none of the experience that you two have. But recently we watched my fiance's nephew, and it was kind of that feeling. It was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. We watched him for 3 days. And I work from home, so it was basically me. And it was just like, oh my God, what is this? What do I do with this guy? Because I want to be a parent, but I've never had, like, I'm an only child. I never watched nieces or nephews, anything like that. So I was just like, what do I do with this guy all day? Like, is he okay? Does he need something? So for someone like the Mandalorian to all of a sudden have a child, and for something that he's not even sure if it's a child, like I watched it today, and Wheel says something like, this is what was causing all the fuss, and he's like, I think it's a child. Like, he's not even sure what he has, how old it is, what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's got to be just like a crazy feeling for someone so hard and tough and concealed, and where he has to be, at least try to be vulnerable to this thing that he doesn't even know how to feed it or whatever. So it's got to be pretty crazy.
I don't have any experience as a parent, but I think, I mean, obviously I would panic at first. But then, you know, I mean, it's all about making sure they're comfortable, you know, getting to know them, taking care of them, and, you know, and not being a nervous wreck all the time, I would suppose. But this show goes a long way towards doing that, because, I mean, you get to kind of feel that way along with the Mando, you know, and how he's starting to care for this child. And all of a sudden you care for the character, and you're like, you want to make sure, you know, it's protected and nothing happens to it and so forth, even though it's like, you know, getting a little ahead of it. It's like a give and take after a while, you know, they can take care of each other. So there's the advantage in having Baby Yoda as a child. So but I love how it plays on that. It brings out a parental instinct that I, you know, am not aware of, that I have. And so I love that. I was like, oh, I automatically see things, how I feel about this particular character, how I would feel about my own child. So
yeah, it's funny. It's Mando takes, like, I feel the exact opposite of what probably a lot of other parents do, where he's got this baby and, hey, he's in a pod, I'll just throw him in, I'll let these Trandoshans just fight all around him, I'm gonna take him here. Most of us are like, oh my God, I'm going to kill this child. I remember when Jack first came, like, he was 7 when he arrived, and I'm like, okay, I woke up every, like, probably 30 seconds for probably 2-3 weeks. Is he still breathing? Is he still breathing?
Yeah.
Oh my God, he needs to take a bath. Am I supposed to keep the door open? What am I going to do? I cannot let this child die within a week, and he's been alive for 7 years. But not Mando. I'll just take him along.
I remember the first couple of weeks he would get up in the middle of the night, and where we rested our head on the bed, you could see right down the hallway. And we were always aware of what was happening, and then we would say to each other, oh God, he's coming down what is he doing now? What's going on? Is something wrong?
Yeah. Why is he in a bathrobe holding coffee? No,
I think that's why it's so interesting that actually episode 2 and 3, so much of the shots that we see are from the Cradle's point of view. So it's not really that we're getting to know Baby Yoda, we're getting to know the Mando. And he's trying so hard to keep that distance between him and the baby by keeping him in the cradle and using that barrier. And then when we get to episode 3, we know that the cradle was thrown into the trash can, so that barrier is gone. So now there is nothing that's separating him from his now child when he was trying to keep that distance.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that's a really great insight, actually, because there was an excuse to not be attached, and all of a sudden he openly comes back. Fast forward a minute to chapter 3, but he automatically, he comes back and he made that commitment, and he sees the little pod Bane in the trash can, and there's that moment of just quietness for a second. Am I really going to do this? Am I really going to do this? And then what's the next shot that we see? He's got his guns ablazing because he's a daddy now, and I will fight you to the end, no matter what. Yeah, it's so great. Yeah,
I think the pod bean is called a pram. Not to like
pram.
beat up. Well,
That's
actually,
that's what I call it now.
So, quick side note, speaking of prams, because when I was 18, I grew up in Mesa, Arizona, which is a very religious suburb of Phoenix, and I moved to Texas to come out. Why I chose Texas, I don't know, but that's where I chose to come out, and I moved to just be gay, Brian. And I was working at Target at the time, and I remember this customer came up and was asking for the buggies. And I had no idea what in the world this woman was talking about. I'm like, a buggy? And she's like, the things you push. And I was like, the carts. And she was like, no, a buggy. I need a buggy for a baby. And I'm like, the toy aisle's over, wherever it was. And the woman was just escalating, and she was getting so mad at me. And I was like, I am sorry. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was 18. I think I looked like I was 10 back then. So Lord knows what this woman thought. And she's like pushing. I'm like, you mean a stroller? And then she's like, yeah. And I was just like, yeah, they're called strollers, because I was, again, 18. I had no idea that different words were used in different. Oh God. Yeah. Anyways. So yes, here I am now at 41, still not knowing proper terms. So thank you. The pram. We found the pram in the trash can. All right, so I know nobody wanted to go back to Tatooine, and we're not on Tatooine, but we have sandcrawlers and Jawas anyways. So was this scene with the sandcrawler, which is so much fun to watch, is there much more to it other than a reason to go back and visit our favorite little Ugnaught?
I thought that was probably the most character-defining moment for Din. To be perfectly honest, because up to this point that we saw him in all these situations where he had all the control, but the moment that he doesn't have control, he's just a dude in a suit falling off things and getting trash thrown at them. And you know what? I feel that. That was the most.
See, this kind of good. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about him kind of being washed up, right? He's not at full power when we first meet him. Yeah. So this is part of his journey, right? And it also ties into him getting his armor, right? So it's because one of the things that struck me watching the Sandcrawler scene was his lack of tactical prowess. He didn't anticipate that they were all going to tase him. I love that. That was just it really showed how, because it's when you think about it, combat in Star Wars, there's two different types of combat. There's tactical, where there's a lot of precision, and then there's brute force. Well, and there's also agility, but so those are the kind of different aspects that different characters have those strengths in different quantities, and a mixture of those three aspects in combat is what differentiates someone who is really good at it from someone who is weak, right? And he just seemed to be so lacking in all of those things. He has no tactical ability because he's not able to find a good way of approaching the Sandcrawler. Yeah. He's not very agile because every attack that people throw at him hits him. And he doesn't have enough. He's not enough of a tank to barrel through whatever's going to get through.
He's the personification of a gold tried star.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so that's what we watch, that's what we see happen to him. And to a certain extent, it also, well, yeah. And I mean, and also in the fight with the Mudhorn, like, as I said last week, he did not do well in that fight, but we can talk about that.
Did anybody
Yeah,
else
just
get
to-
the feeling that the first part of this episode was like a silent film?
Oh yeah, it's like
It
a
plays
Buster
out-
Keaton film. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It plays out like a silent film in that you're watching what's happening, and
good point.
the whole hanging off of the sandcrawler, it reminded me of, there's scenes of like from I think the movie is called Safety Last. It's an old silent film where a guy's hanging off a clock tower.
Oh, what's that guy's name?
For
I know
some
you're
reason,
talking-
and I wanted to say Buster Keaton, but I don't think it's Buster Keaton who's
No.
doing it. But that's what it reminded me of. Just kind of the old timey showing instead of telling. We're seeing his persistence, in the face of failure, abject failure. We just see that he just doesn't ever give up. That's kind of what I took away from those scenes.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so great too, just to jump forward a little bit again, but he is, as you brought up last week, I mean, he's not really, it's almost like luck that gets him through a lot of things, perseverance, it's what, all of those things, until he is fighting for something. When he goes back and all of a sudden he is precise, there's so much precision about what he's doing, but he's just this lost thing going on, which we can go into a little more detail at some point. But I found that, I don't know if I personally noticed it that way until you brought that up last week, which was, I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, he really does just kind of fumble his way through everything until that moment that there's a decisive decision made and he goes against the grain, which how much more of a Mandalorian mindset is it than to go against the grain? It starts right there with Satine, who goes against the grain of what a Mandalorian is supposed to do. It goes to Death Watch, who goes against the grain of what they are now supposed to do. It goes to Sabine Wren, who goes against the grain of everything that they tell her to do. That is what a Mandalorian way. This is the way. Do not follow your gut. It's such an interesting perspective, I think. So
I gotta be honest, the first time I saw this episode, I hated it. And every single time I've seen it since that very first time, it grows on me and I love it more and more. And it's like, in reality, it's really such a cute little episode, and it's like great and hilarious. And during the beginning, but then also especially like during the sandcrawler scene, like Baby Yoda just like chilling back, like making his cute little like baby coos and baby little sounds. Like I'm all about it. And what stuck out to me, like with the Jawas and everything, was finally seeing the pulse rifle in action. Like, we see it at the beginning, it's like, okay, cool, like Trandoshan totally disintegrated, but like this guy's just going ham with his pulse rifle, like disintegrating all the Jawas. And like that was really cool for me because I'm not a particularly huge Boba fan, but I love Boba in the holiday special. So when we see like that cool rifle that Boba's got, it's like, oh, cool. Like I wonder how that works, and to see it finally like work in action, and like just like getting up and close with the sandcrawler, like we see a little bit of it in A New Hope, like the inside, but it's just like with R2 and C-3PO, like that thing is ginormous. It's like bigger than like row homes, and like I want to see the goings on of this. Like I want to see what happens inside. I want to see more of it, and we see the cockpit, and Din finally makes it up to the top, and it's like super cool. I can always go for seeing things that like are always pervasive in Star Wars, but we don't necessarily know the inside of them or the functions or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think Hope brought that up last week. It was awesome when she said this could have just been the Boba Fett show, but it brought in, so we get those moments of, I'm with you. I'm not sure if I loved this episode on the onset, but it really is very, very rewatchable. And it is so Star Wars. Like, Return of the Jedi is also my favorite movie because I feel like it gives you everything that Star Wars is and has become in 2.5 hours. And now this episode has done everything that Star Wars is in 30 minutes. We get creatures, we get the Force, we get cheese ball moments, we get super emotional, very touchy feely things. You can just pew 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 this episode if you want to, or like clearly we're doing now, we can dig in a lot deeper if we want to. And I think I was like, because my other fast forward, hopefully this conversation will change. Chapter 6 is probably my least favorite episode. It looks beautiful. I know. I've already got Ian looking at me. So I'm really excited to hear some fresh perspective to give me a new way of looking at chapter 6 when we get there, because I think it's beautiful looking. But I'm like,
So next we're going to talk about the quest, the battle of the Mudhorn, and it is revealed that during this scene that Baby Yoda is Force sensitive. Was this shocking to any of you? I mean, and what do you think it means that the characters in the show did not know that what he was actually doing, the actual reaching out of being Force sensitive with this hand? Anyway, considering the Jedi have been removed for about roughly 30 years, what is everybody's thoughts on this? Who would like to go first? Okay, Kayla Met.
When it comes to Baby Yoda being Force sensitive, for some reason, that was not the thing that like shocked me about this. I don't know why. I feel like every time you find out a character is Force sensitive in Star Wars, it just hits the same. Like you get the same kind of like weird bubbly feeling, like you feel like you're 5 again, like it's great. But it's never really shocking to me. I think it's because at that point, Twitter had been calling him Baby Yoda for over a week, and so my brain was like, oh, Yoda, Force sensitive, duh. Like at that point, that didn't shock me. But what shocked me was how terrible Mando was at fighting when it came to the actual, event, like the purpose of the quest. And for me, what shocked me about that, I'm gonna dip my toe into chapter 3 when talking about this, but I won't go too far. Just how horrible he was at fighting this natural thing, this thing from nature, this beast, but how militarized he can get when it's something like a stormtrooper or when it comes to bounty hunting. And it actually, coming from a queer perspective, it was interesting to see him so disconnected from his natural instincts and so disconnected from what it means to just, at your core, connect with nature like that, and instead train himself to be so exact when it comes to interacting with other people. And looking at it as like a queer metaphor, I saw it as, sometimes when us as various LGBT people are socialized, we lose a part of our natural instincts, masking and really slipping into what it means to fit that role. And so watching him fail at what should have been the easiest thing he probably ever did in his entire career, it just, from a queer lens, made me really think about, what that means for us and how our social skills are sometimes varied and how intensely we have to like fight to be able to socialize the way we need to socialize.
Ian, I saw you shaking your head there. Do you have something to add?
Oh, no, just like agreeing a lot.
Emma? Sorry.
It's okay. The same. It's very like that is, it really hits, like that is so accurate and true. Yeah.
Mark? P?
No, I have to agree. I just with everything that was said, basically, yeah, it's just the seeing. I mean, the other thing I can add to that is going back to the whole parent thing. It makes Mando much more real. Just like, you look at your parents and you think they're perfect, and then you get to see them to fail and do things wrong, and you get upset with them, and you realize they're just human, sort of thing. So that's what I'll add to that.
I do add something real quick in terms of the like it's been 30 years since the Clone Wars and like the whole Force moment. So I think that the fact that the Empire, like it can be blamed on the Empire for sure, wiping out any kind of references or like ideas about the Force. But I think at the same time too, it can. I think it's just like cultural almost. Like some people in Star Wars and some cultures just aren't aware of the Force in the same way that in the real world, like just a lot of people aren't aware of the different religions of First Nations or African peoples and cultures. So, it's very much, I think, due in part to like the imperialism, colonialism aspect, as well as just like, some people are Christian or Jewish or Muslim and they're not aware of different really worldly religions so much.
Toby, what are your thoughts?
Well, because back to the whole Baby Yoda being revealed as Force sensitive. Again, I had been on the same train where like I heard him called Baby Yoda for way too long, clearly, and it was really funny because Calumet we watched the scene and Calumet pulls out this insane queer metaphor, and my brain just went to how can something so small move something so big? Because if he's considered a baby in his species, how is he so like impressively Force sensitive? And Calumet's like, that's just what like Yodas or Yodels or whatever.
I guess
that's what they do. They're more Force sensitive than other things. And like, how is no one like? Is it like when one dies, one's alive again? Like a whole Loch Ness Monster theory where it's like one dies and then the next one comes and there's only one at a time kind of a thing. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But like it also went back to the whole someone had mentioned about you go through your life being like, oh, like your parents are these like things that can protect you, and then Mando's getting completely torn apart. And Yoda's like, all right, I guess I got to come in and help you right now. Like, I'll do one thing for you. But it also equals the playing field where I think Mando is like, oh, this is an innocent little baby thing that I have to take care of. And then Baby Yoda like pulls the reverse Uno card and is like, no, I'm Force sensitive and I just saved your life. And Mando's like, oh, okay, we're on the same playing field here. And he kind of, I guess, feels a little bit more secure in the fact that like, oh, okay, if it really came to it, I feel like he could take care of himself because he just did this thing for me. So.
Awesome. Good share. Hope, you're up.
I'm just really sad because Ian summarized my 3-minute rant that I spent like half an hour writing notes about last night, fighting my cat over, in like a minute. Like I had 4 pages worth of notes, so I guess ditto.
Well, and I have something to say too about Yoda, Baby Yoda's. I'm thinking right now about like the fact that Baby Yoda sort of pulled this out at the last minute and that it was so powerful. Like seeing the Mudhorn levitating was like, I felt awe when I first saw that. It was like this moment of wonder, but the other thing that I realized about it is that this provides Mando a very compelling textual reason to go back for Baby Yoda because he owes him a life debt.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, because it's kind of easy to sort of just float through watching the episodes and think about like, oh, okay, like he's cute and he's vulnerable. And to an extent, like those are notes that are hit, especially in chapter 3. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just if you want to sort of poke at it a little bit deeper, you realize, okay, yeah, like he owes him a life debt. He saved his life, and it means that in a way, like they're connected forever. And especially coming from a culture that is so honor based, right? It's like those kinds of ideas and concepts would have been indoctrinated into Din like very early in his life. And so it's something that's going to be at the forefront.
I just want to read this question, how it's posed in our outline and why I wrote this way. So the question in our outline is, how did the Empire wipe away the memory of the Force from the galaxy so quickly? It's been 30 years since Clone Wars, right? It's like crazy. And it's not crazy because we see this in our real world, and we see this also in Star Wars. There's a reason that we have in our real world Holocaust deniers when there are still people alive from the Holocaust. There's a reason that people find out about the Tulsa Race Massacre through Watchmen. There's a reason that me, as a queer person, was never taught about Stonewall. I have a college degree, and I've never was taught about the Stonewall riots. And it's a flaw in our education system that doesn't do a good enough job showing how events from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago are still rippling and impacting us today. Because, like, I was taught that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned discrimination. I was never taught that until summer of this year that didn't apply to us as queer people. It wasn't until that happened this year that we had, we were covered by that law and that rights. And so it's this flaw in our education system that we're not taught the after effects of civil rights or queer rights. We're taught it in a way that, like, these things happened and it was magically better. We're not taught that, like, yes, Civil Rights Act was passed in 1960s, but we're not taught how, then certain people in power was making fear campaigns to keep certain people out of subdivisions, to keeping certain people out of suburbs and stuff, and how these systemic problems have been building ever since then that still affect us today, as recently as this week with Breonna Taylor not getting justice. So, like, these are things that it's purposeful. It's purposeful for the people in power to keep and hold power. And, like, that's why we need, like, a nationwide standard instead of letting certain states just, like, pick and choose these things. That way we can have things like the history of Tulsa or the Stonewall riots properly taught to us and stuff like that. And we can apply the same thing to Star Wars in this context. We have to remember that the Jedi were a huge minority. There are tens of thousands of planets in the galaxy, and at their height there was only 10,000 Jedi. That's not even enough to have a single Jedi per planet. And we see this in the context of stuff like Clone Wars. We were just talking about the Martez sisters. Trace Martez, at the height of the Jedi Order, didn't even know what a Jedi did, and didn't even know that she thought that they started the war. And so because there's such a huge, like, minority, and the common everyday people don't even know what a Jedi, they never even, like, understand, or they just have stories. So they're already, like, these mythical creatures that people never ever see. And so the whole point of the actual Clone Wars was to disillusion the Jedi to the people who actually knew who they were, which were the people in power, like the Senate. And then we have, like, Order 66 happens, and we have sub-orders from for the clones to destroy and burn, like, everything that the Jedi had. And we have the propaganda of rebels that, like, just keeps pushing this idea that there were never Jedi in the first place to people who already believe that the Jedi are stories. And, like, one of my absolute favorite scenes of all of Star Wars is the scene where Tarkin goes up to Minister Tula and actively gaslights her, saying that there's no such thing as Force users and Jedis, when the Grand Inquisitor, my grande boyfriend, is standing 2 feet behind her and who is an ex-Jedi, and doesn't even stop to, like, come in and to correct her. So, that's the thing. Like, it's not an outrageous thing, because even at their height, most people didn't even really know what they did in the first place. The only criticism probably is the fact that we see Star Wars so much from the point of view of Jedi that we feel like they're the majority when they're really not.
That's a good point, because, like you said, they're the minority, but not only were they a minority by the height of everything, and when the power turned, they were vilified. I mean, that gets glossed over a little bit, but they were like, hey, the Jedi turned on the Chancellor, they tried to kill him, they're terrorists, they're traitors, and I think that switch happened so quickly that you forget that. So they were a vilified minority, which is, like, a horrifying thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're not even... Oh, sorry, we're not even taught, like, in our own society that stuff as recently as, like, 20 years ago is still affecting us today. Like, people think, like, oh, 9/11 happened and like we went to war and it was great. No, like it's still affecting, like there's a reason that it's rippling into a lot of the crises that we're still having today, including like race issues that are happening. It wasn't magically fixed just because like we invaded Iraq. Sorry, this got super full of podcast, guys.
So what I was gonna say about sort of the perception of Force users in the Star Wars universe is that, I mean, as I mentioned last week, like Jedi are not the only Force. It's not the only way to be a Force adept, right? Is to be a Jedi. And like even if you look at Night Sisters, right? Like they don't even use Kyber to focus the Force. They use Icor, right? So, and speaking to Ian's point, you know, it's like you're going to have Force sensitives throughout the galaxy, but they each come from different cultures. And so we have seen examples of different cultural ways of like sort of recognizing or of utilizing Force adepts that exist in the Star Wars universe. You know, so just to the point of like, yeah, you know, like Jedi are a tiny minority, and as people who use Kyber crystals to, you know, commune with the Force, like they're just a tiny little slice. There's so much more. That's it.
Yeah, like I actually would love to see a story where it's the other Force adepts that are the ones that end up saving the Force, because Palpatine like made it so much of a big thing to destroy everything he could. He destroyed temples, he tore apart Ilum, like he destroyed lightsabers and all this. We see this in the comics and the books and stuff like that. I would love to see something like the Lasats and the Night Sisters. Like they're the ones that end up rescuing and like bringing back this like Force idea. That would be a really cool thing.
Yeah, Kayla Matt.
I don't know, just to speak on the point of like erased history and how easy it is, especially we have to look at the fact that Star Wars is a world based in technology, and how much easier it is to just get rid of stuff with the push of a button. And so for me, throughout the entirety of just watching and consuming any form of Star Wars media, it's never shocked me that the Jedi or that any form of anything have been able to be swept under the rug so easily. Because like a good example is I graduated high school in 2017. I know, baby. And when I graduated, I instantly started to get involved in the queer community of Nashville, Tennessee, and I actually became a drag queen for a period of time and performed at clubs and stuff. But thing is, I had never heard a single word about the AIDS epidemic up until I joined that community and talked to people who had survived it. I had never known this was a thing ever. And so, especially nowadays, watching our current government continuously rug sweep our history, it hits harder watching something like this where, you know, the Jedi's history, Force sensitive history, most history right now, the history of the Mandalorians has been completely just washed away. No big deal. A younger generation will never find out about it unless they happen to find some random person who lived through it. And it's just, I don't know, it's a interesting yet tragic parallel to see in fiction.
Toby?
First of all, the headphones tangled around the microphone and it keeps pulling on me. It doesn't help any form of my Tourette's, because I'm like, oh, gotta take the headphones on.
I feel like a cat.
Yeah, right. But just to speak on that, because I mean, I started dating Calumet 2 years ago, and up until meeting Calumet, you could say any I don't want to say plot point because it's real life, jeez, but like any historical event, I don't know it. I was raised in Georgia. I went to school here. And even though I went to a, you know, predominantly POC school, you know, where even then like the LGBTQ community like didn't exist, as, you know, a trans mass person, I didn't know anything. I had no idea about anything until I met Calumet. And even then I probably know maybe 2% of like, you know, queer culture. I didn't know about Stonewall. I had no idea about the AIDS, anything. Like it was just non-existent for me. So I was going to make a point as to where like, it's so unrealistic that you can only be 30 years in the future and no one knows anything. And I'm like, hang on, I'm the living proof that what I'm saying is not true. I know nothing. So, I mean, it's actually like genuinely scary how you can have
such an impact on a community just be completely unnoticed. You can have all of the Jedi just like disappear, and I'm like, that's not realistic. And it's like, no, it's definitely realistic.
And like also like 2 points on those, like one on something that Kelmet said about this being world technology. In the Charles Soule comic, when Jocasta Nu is trying to get into the Jedi Library archives and she doesn't want that knowledge to fall into Palpatine's hands, she pushes a button and deletes thousands of years worth of knowledge at a single button.
Yes, I remember that.
So like it's that easy.
Earlier, it made me think of the conversation that Uncle Owen had with Luke, where he refers to Ben as that, that wizard is a crazy old man. That's what people think about Jedi at that point in time. It's so far removed from that reality that once was that you can just disregard it however way you want to. You can say whatever you want to because it's not front and center anymore, as it was to most of the galaxy, maybe closer to the inner rim and not so much the outer rim, because in the outer rim, I'm sure you can say just about anything, and it becomes legend, so to speak. Going back to the whole Baby Yoda thing, the other thing too, on top of the fact that, we're removed from the Jedi at this point, is the fact that, maybe even within their own universe, there's a lot of mystique around that alien race. We don't see them around all the time. And so there's going to be a lot of like, well, we don't know what this particular race does. Are they all Force sensitive? Is it just part of their genetic makeup? That sort of thing. Which may be something that we learn as the series goes on. And then going back to, what Toby and Caleb were talking about, on top of everything that this whole conversation, what we've been talking about, it kind of scares me to think that we're going to get far enough ahead into the future where people are going to say the same about the AIDS epidemic, that people are not going to believe it actually happened, because I don't know anybody who has it anymore, that sort of thing. I thinking about that just blows my mind, because I have a feeling we will get there someday. And maybe that might be because there might be a cure, or we don't have to worry about it anymore, or we're getting gaslighted again. It could go anyway.
Well, sadly, in our own community, and thank God PrEP is out there, but now PrEP has made it this person, if you want to have protected sex, you are now, oftentimes it seems that it jumps to you are anti this or anti this, anti this. It is now like somehow you are insulting by wanting to wear protection if you're having sex. And so it's a really interesting thing how all of these things play into the community itself, and somehow can turn the community against each other over something as simply as wearing a condom. Like if you are our age, that was drilled into your head how important it was, and it's very hard to remove that from people like us. And if that is somehow insulting, then don't have sex. It doesn't need to jump to the next thing of, but it's also sad to hear two young people who didn't even know anything about that. So maybe that is where some of that comes from, and there needs to be a conversation. It's really interesting. I mean, this is not a sexual education 101 conversation, but Mark Marquis, do you have anything to add before we go to break?
Everyone really covered everything that I wanted to point out, especially in regards of like just the degree to which people can gaslight each other so easily today. I'm old enough to remember back when like the internet was brand new, and I remember having this thought that, wow, it's like you'll be able to look up anything on the internet, and education and ignorance will be a thing of the past because all the answers will be on the internet. And it's just amazing to think about how twisted that's become. How disinformation can be passed so much more easily than information. And to tie it back into Star Wars, I kind of look back at the scene with Han in A New Hope, where he's expressing his doubt about the Force, and that's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I think he's speaking for the average person in the galaxy who has grown up hearing maybe rumors of a thing, but it's not part of their daily lives. Life under the Empire was designed by the Empire, and they controlled what people thought about and how they thought about it. And it's pretty clear that even within the Empire, people who are Force sensitive only worked for the Empire. If you were Force sensitive and you weren't in the Empire, you were an enemy. And that's how they viewed anybody that was Force sensitive. So it created this sense of people living in the galaxy under the Empire who were Force sensitive. If they had any inclination of what the Empire did with Force sensitives, it caused people to go into the closet. So that's an era where, and it's a very sobering thing to think about, because you have this era in which the Jedi reached this pinnacle of being Force sensitive, but also having an impact in the galaxy for good. And yet, just in the span of just one generation, people are closeted and they've been completely wiped out as a culture, as a religion. I think that I have always said that Star Wars is a fantastic metaphor for what's going on in the real world. And I will continue to beat that drum, because those lessons are more important now than ever.
Yeah.
100%. And real quick, just before we go to break, something Emma brought up about Mando owes Baby Yoda a life debt, which is something that is brilliant to say, and to bring it to when I watch this, Tom and I have been parents for a little while now, and we've heard a lot of times of thank you for what you do to these kids. These kids need homes, and which is all true, and there's a lot of kids out there who have nowhere to go. But Tom and I have always said that the children are the ones who saved us, and we owe them the life debt. They gave us a purpose. They gave us the dream that,
Absolutely,
quite honestly, we never thought was possible for us. And, I think that for them, as they get older and they look back, they're now going to have a life that they never thought possible for themselves, either because of circumstances that they had no control over. But for, maybe a lot of mainstream audiences out there who are built in a society in which you are just biologically going to have children, and that's your life. You will get married, you'll have kids, people like us, we're not supposed to, for whatever reason. You may or may not think it's true, whether it's biological, whether it's the government, whether it's your church. A lot of us are told it is not for you. I mean, when I was first going to school 15 years ago, I wanted to be a teacher. And I think I had a pride flag somewhere on me, on like a necklace or a bracelet or something. And the counselor told me, you cannot be a teacher. You are gay and you can't be a teacher. And it was just, at the time I was a 19-year-old kid. So of course I just was like shocked, and I can't believe they said that. And I thought I couldn't be a teacher. But, as life is going, there's terrible things that the internet has done that we've all discussed, but there is also a really good side too of it's there if you look for it, and it has still moved our lives forward. But I do think this show, it is not Mandalorian who saved Baby Yoda. I think it is Baby Yoda who saved the Mandalorian, and I really hope a lot of audiences see it that way, because we're about to go into chapter 3. We've done, we discussed last episode, this first half of this podcast, talking about Din just like getting beaten down, and he's not very good at what he's doing, and he's about to get some spiffy new armor, and he's about to fight for a cause, and all of a sudden we see what he's made of. And that happens to us queer people way too. We are beaten down until we decide ourselves enough is enough, and now you're going to play by my rules because I'm no longer going to play by yours. And then we can come out swinging, and we can better ourselves and hopefully better the generations left behind us. So we're going to take a quick break with that. Brian's going to dust off his soapbox, and I think maybe we all are going to dust our soapboxes off for a hot second, and we will be right back.
And we are back, and we're now going to start talking about chapter 3. So let's start off with our first question. Last week it was brought up that the show was kind of soft. I think this episode starts off this way as well, with a tender moment between Mando and Baby Yoda. then we are all forced to remember it's just a job for Mando. And he goes ahead and he turns baby Yoda,
The child.
aka the child, over to the client. What are your thoughts on this?
So I have a thought, which I didn't have this thought until I listened to all of you last week, because when Brian asked me to be on this, and I was like, I don't see Mando through a queer lens. I have no idea what he's talking about. And then I listened to last week, and everybody had all these great ideas, and I was like, oh my god, so much of that makes sense. So episode 3 is interesting because he gives up the child, like you said, and then he makes this decision, like, wait a minute, I need to go back and save this thing. And I think it speaks a lot to how, because Mando has his mask on, like so many of us do in our lives, and as a queer person, and so he gives something up because he thinks, okay, this is the real me, this person with this mask. I'm gonna give something up so that I can maintain this mask. And then this is the part where a lot of people in our community have a hard transition, is saying, wait a minute, I deserve this. This is what this is to me. So he gives up a piece of himself and decides to take it back, be himself, and make the right choice. And I think that's like the coming out experience to some people. I don't want to take everyone's experience away, but I think if you're gonna look at it through a queer lens, that's this whole episode is he's like, I can have both worlds. I can be myself and be happy. And so much of that kind of came about after I listened to you all last week.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's in chapter 2, there's a line that he says as Quill takes him back to see the Jawas, and they're getting ready to talk to them, and he's, weapons are my life. And I'm really curious about, what do we as queer people hold on to that's our own? What is if we are free enough to remove the mask that Scott was just talking about, we're left with ourselves. And what are we as a community when our community involves everyone from different ethnic backgrounds, from different religious backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds? We are everyone, and and in some ways we're also no one, which is but what is there something that is uniquely ours being queer that Mando is going to be able to provide with Baby Yoda, who also in this moment is just being used for what he is? He is a no one at this thing. He is just a vessel for something. We don't know what that vessel is yet. As the show goes on, we all have our theories about what that is. But is there something in that rescue that identifies him as uniquely queer?
Well, when I think of things that the queer community have in common, like you've already pointed out that there's so many differences, but there are some, I think, things that are universal to being queer that queer people discover. I think one of them is resilience. I think that's something that queer people tend to have in great abundance, because we don't have often we don't have the foundation of having rituals and traditions and things that straight society has. So we have to go out and find those things. So finding other people like us and forming a sense of community brings in the whole aspect of found family. And I think the reason why the Mando and Baby Yoda story resonates in a queer lens is because he was a foundling himself. And I think when he discovers that this bounty is this little this little new life, he starts to be reminded of who it is, who he is and who he sees himself as within the framework of his own Mandalorian culture. And having that to fall back on, it becomes more than just a job for him. And what I like about episode 2 and mostly episode 3 is you get these little moments where we're seeing that the Mandalorian is already beginning to change and stop thinking of it as just a job. He starts showing concern for the baby. There's the opening scene where the baby crawls out of his pram and pulls the little knob off of the lever, and the Mando's like, "That's not a toy." That's not a toy is the most parental thing you could possibly say. So we're already seeing that he's already thinking about the child's well-being, even though he has this this exterior of like he's this he's just this bounty hunter and he doesn't care. It's just a job to him. And then by the time he's delivering the child back to Navarro, he walks into the client's abode, and he's instantly telling like the stormtrooper, hey, careful with that, careful. And then he delivers him into the room, and then he wants to know like what's going to happen to the child. So he's already showing that his perspective is shifting from being just a bounty to something more than that. And it's the beginning of a found family narrative.
Absolutely. Mark P., what are you thinking?
To add to that, we get to see him within his own community with the fellow Mandos and what that brings, and we see some of the infighting that happens amongst his own kind, which we obviously see in our own communities too. We don't always all get along, but it's just interesting to see that dynamic, because he does have this core that he can go to, his core family that he can go to. But with Baby Yoda, going to what Mark Marquis said, just that we start seeing the beginning of this found family, which is very, very important within the gay community, because a lot of times people lose their own family because their family is religious, they don't want to have anything to do with them, they get kicked out of their homes, etc. And so something I learned early on when I first came out is that concept of family. When we talked about other people, like, oh, that person's family. And I'm like, what do you mean? No, they're family, and that's just a term that I learned early on and just became part of the lingo, So yeah, it's super important to see that. And of course, he get along the journey, jumping a little bit ahead, he gets his fabulous new armor, that makes him stronger, and he presents himself with new strength, and he's got a new objective, and it's to take care of this little creature, which obviously you get flashbacks of him remembering what happened to him as a kid as well too, and how he had everything taken away from him, and he just got thrust into this whole new experience. He doesn't want the baby to have to go through a lot of what he went to if he can prevent it. He's there, he's able to stop it, and if he's able to make this little creature's life better, he's going to do everything he can in his power to make that happen. So.
Yeah.
If I could just say something, I love the question of like, what things do we carry or wear that make us like queer? And it was kind of asked a little earlier, and Din saying that weapons are part of his religion, but then the whole process of, like Mark Perez was saying, he's getting this new armor, he turns the baby in, and then all of a sudden he rescues him. I think there's like a lot of different stuff, a lot of different psychological stuff going on there. Like, as for like a literal interpretation for myself, like something that I would, that I carry or wear that's like totally part of, quote unquote, my religion is like, my long hair, which is something that's traditionally seen, at least in the West, as something feminine. And that's just like, I don't think this is ever going to come off for me. And thank you. Thank you.
Actually, I was pretty excited to see it. I didn't see it last week.
Yeah.
And thank you. And the whole process of Mando taking the baby in, getting his new armor, which as the armor is smoldering, the flashbacks we see of his childhood, And then the decision to finally break Baby Yoda out. It's very much like Mando is reclaiming his identity. He's reclaiming a part of himself that, you know, we've heard of. There's like a lot of different, you know, there's like different psychological ways of trying to cure gayness, and or our own psychological and emotional and mental battles with coming to terms with being part of the LGBT community, you know, being told, oh, by society, oh, that's not acceptable, or you can't do that. And then, you know, when we're old enough, or whenever it is, when we realize, you know what, F it, like this is who I am, and I'm going to own it, and this is me, and there's nothing anyone can say or do about it. And that's like Mando taking the baby and rescuing him. He's like, this child is a part of my identity now, because the psychological toll of being a foundling himself. You know, he's like, it's so emotional, and I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, and to build off of that, you know, Mando's reminded by the client that part of the rules of the guild are that once you've taken the transaction, you don't ask questions, you don't say anything, you leave and you pretend that it never happened. So there's this tension that's created between his identity as a bounty hunter and his sort of his true self, right? His central identity as Din, right? And talking about the flashbacks that take place in the Forge, one of the things I really wanted to talk about the Forge, because I love the way that it's visually depicted as a sacred space.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the ceiling is vaulted, it kind of invokes like the idea of it kind of being like a cathedral, and the way that the armor speaks too, like she's a spiritual advisor. She's a leader in the community. Yeah. And so those moments, like that's a moment, those flashbacks are a moment of catharsis. You know, because that is where people go through catharsis, right? In those sacred spaces.
You know, but when we're entering into her room too, I'm a mithril head. I'm assuming that's what Boba's little thing is. That's hanging over the doorway. You see a lot of things hanging over people's doorways as a protection type place for sure. I agree 100%.
I mean, I always saw the Beskar almost as if it was like a cross, because they treat it as if it's like this religious object anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Kayla, did you have something to say too, right?
Oh, I just wanted to add on to kind of what Ian said, because what you said like was totally awesome, and I noticed, kind of like to bounce off of what you said, I didn't notice it until rewatching the forgery scene today, but the Mandalorian's breastplate actually, for me, like I was sitting with Ren and I was like, that looks like a binder. Like that looks like a chest binder. And it reminded me about the physical armor that like trans people wear every day in order to kind of like survive that, like just survive today's climate especially. And yeah, I got reminded of that when Ian, you mentioned your hair, because like we totally feel that.
Yep.
I definitely feel that.
It's interesting. Like I was going back and forth with how to even tackle this chapter, because there's so much. I mean, this entrance into this scene can result in like probably 20 hours of conversation. There's just so much. We have the armor being forged. We have the armor herself and what she means as a guide to us queer people. Mark P brought it up earlier about discovering the word family. You and Kayla brought up doing drag, and as queer people, we are generally, I think Marquis brought this up, and it was something back in June when he was on our podcast before that had never necessarily clicked the same way. But we are the ones, more often than not, always the outlier in our family. There's not necessarily someone for us to go to for guidance in our immediate family. Not every family's built that way, but as a blanket statement, we're alone the minute we decide to bring it out. And we have no one to rely on, and it is up to us to go seek that out. It's one of the reasons that scene, to not talk about the Mandalorian, but in the Clone Wars, when Ahsoka walks away from the Jedi Order, she is going down the stairs on a journey on herself with absolutely no one else to be there. And all of us have had to be there at some point in time, various times of our life. But we all have to go out and seek that out on our own. And Din walks in to this room to discover who he is on his own. He has found his family there, quite literally. He's a foundling. He has his found family surrounding him, and he, up until this point, hasn't really decided to wear it proudly, and he's about to wear it proudly. So who does he go to? His drag mother, to guide him with where to go. And
I love it. Yes.
And just for those of you who are not listening, drag mothers are, actually, I'm going to let Kayla comment on this real quick. Since you had done drag, I've never done drag, even though I will say when I came out at 18 years old, I went to my first bar. And because I am me, I have to, it's all scary for everyone to come out and do their first thing, but I'm me and always have to laugh about something. So I found the drag queen performing that night, who was my favorite. And I said, I'm going to make out with that drag queen because it will be the first boy that I ever kiss. And I'm going to remember that it was a drag queen. And I, sure enough, worked my way through that crowded bar floor, found that drag queen and made out with the drag queen as the very first boy that I ever kissed.
I did not know that. I did not know.
Wow. Secrets have been revealed.
Thomas, think of Pussy LaHoo because that's basically who it was. All right, sorry. Caleb.
Awesome.
But for those who might not know, a drag mom or drag dad is kind of like your mentor in that scene, and also becomes a mentor throughout life. I know I had a drag dad. I miss them so much. When I moved from Tennessee, I haven't been able to perform again, so I haven't been able to go up and experience the whole family, but it really does become a family. I had drag grandparents and drag uncles and aunts. Like, it hits everything, and it feels so safe to just walk into a space, be like, I want to create art with you, and then get adopted into this family. And you just, there's no questions. There's no fear. You can talk to anyone about anything. And it was my first experience, at least, really being embraced by the queer community. I was living in Nashville, more progressive than other places in Tennessee, but still not the best. And I had never experienced that kind of energy before. I can only describe it as just raw love. Truly, like, what existed in that dance bar is just raw love. It's amazing.
That's awesome. That's really, thank you for sharing that. So we that's a great transition to talk about a found family, and Ian brought this up last week. So Ian, I want to start with you because it was something that we didn't get to dive into last week, but we are our found family in the show all has to live down in the sewers, like that. They are hidden. They are erased from the society around them, and they are forced to live down below where no one will see them. It goes to what we were talking about earlier about erasing our history. They are still alive, but they are erased and sent down with the trash to be forgotten about. So there is a scene as when the Mandalorian walks in about, but a little tiff between two different Mandalorians, and they're basically fighting over what is a Mandalorian. When I read that scene, one person's fighting about Jon Favreau. I don't remember that character's name, so we'll just call him Jon Favreau, is fighting about Mandalorians. We are our numbers. That is what we are. And he's got his knife out ready to fight. And the armor is like, no, we are who we choose to be, basically. And what we represent, this is the way. So I want to talk about living in in erasure, constantly just being erased. What happened to us 2 minutes ago is erased, and what that is in the show, being in the sewers until you choose to put on your new face and walk back out and say, I will not live here anymore. And I'm really curious. It's something that I think this show has done really brilliantly. But Ian, I want to start with you because you were the one last week who brought up the sewers.
Can I just say welcome to being bisexual if you're a woman and you choose to date a guy?
Yeah. It's true, and that's something.
I have a very biased.
Sorry, we keep cutting Ian off, but I'm looking forward to hearing the two of you because I know, and I don't know what it's like anymore, but I remember getting so miffed at some of my friends who, and this was, 20 plus years ago, like times were very different. And to find someone who was open enough to be curious was not something that you saw. It was usually done in the sewers behind closed doors. And I know that I had met people in my life, men, that's who I spent most of my time with. So I can't speak to outside of that. But like if there was a man who experimented with another person, with another man, and decided, hey, that wasn't for me. A lot of gay people, and it was probably our own insecurities back then of going, well, you're in denial. And there was no room for, we expected the curiosity, and we were allowed to dip our toes in the lady pond because we had to figure it out, but someone wasn't allowed to dip their toes in the man pond and to decide it wasn't for them. And I think that has continued in the B of our name, and like you can't be both, and that is just, I don't understand that mentality behind that. So I can only imagine how that is, because the bi experience is really not talked about a lot, and it's brushed to the side because it's quote unquote too confusing for people to, I think, to even comprehend. So anyways, Ian, I apologize, but
well, just as quickly touch on that point, depending on who I'm with, or depending on like the people I'm around, I tell them like I am bi, but if they're kind of like in the know, or I'm comfortable explaining myself, I tell them I'm pan. And I remember last year I got this new job, and you're feeling people out, and I was just, it was one of the first words that came to mind was when describing myself, like I'm bi. And later, I was talking about this with a gay coworker, but later we got to talking about that moment, being introduced together, and he was telling me, you told me you're a bi, and I just have to, like let you know, like for the longest time, it took me a while to get over like that whole bias or prejudice against bi people. And I just felt it was nice to be able to hear that vulnerability from this person who now we're super close. So, but going back to, the sewers, and, one of the questions, and I have a couple of different thoughts on this whole sequence, but one of the questions that was posed was, where do we as the LGBTQ plus people get cast to? And I thought I couldn't answer this question really without bringing up our Black, Indigenous, and people of color trans siblings, because, it's the fact that they get cast and put into graves at disproportionate rates than some of us sitting here. And, the fact that these Mandalorians and their covert are literally underground in the sewers is, it's sad, but it's a truth, and it's our truth, and it's super symbolic and relatable, unfortunately. And once we all come out together, jumping a little bit towards the end, once we all come out together, like at the end of the episode, some of us have to be mindful and find other safe spaces or go back into hiding. But, someone messes with one of us, and they mess with all of us. And honey, they've never seen anything coming any quicker. And you know, the little fight sequence between the heavy Mando and Din Mando is, you know, obviously there's the queer element of this sequence, but then there's the Star Wars mythos element of this sequence, which is just as profound as well, because this sequence, I think, truly provides the audience and some of the, you know, kind of like the newcomer or the casual fans, a glimpse into Mandalorian life post the Great Purge. You know, they have their creed, their religion, their life. You know, we get a little glimpse into everything. And this scene could be taken for me, it could be taken out of like the Knights of the Old Republic game, where, you know, they have the battle circle. And it's, you know, for those who don't know, you know, Knights of the Old Republic is like a Star Wars RPG game. Sorry to get off on a little tangent, but like the scuffle between the two is totally in line with Mandalorian mythos in Legends and the EU, and you know what Mandalorian life was like in the past, and how they're continuing that legacy into the future to protect themselves and save themselves. And the armor is, you know, as M said, continuing this tradition as the spiritual advisor archetype, and in the sacred grove of the forge and the armory. So, yeah.
Oh, you have something?
I swear Ian has my brain, because he brought up like every point I was going to say. Because I was also going to just mention about how the Mandos fight among themselves. Like, we've seen that in our own history. I mean, our mothers who built the queer rights movement was Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. And Sylvia Rivera, years later, was booed off the stage of Pride by white gays because they didn't want a queer woman of color telling them what to do. And so, like, we all, yeah, I mean, I was just gonna, and then Ian said everything else that I was gonna say.
mean,
but I did want to like bring that up, that like it is very common that there is constant, and I think it all comes from fear. You know, we finally have a space that we feel safe in, and then there are other queer people who are different from us, and like we've lived so long in fear to have somebody else that's so similar to us, but at the same time, like, we're scared to share a space when we finally have a space of our own. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from, that we're still, and the language is always changing, things are always changing. I know, like, recently I was watching a Qi'ra thing, because I love Qi'ra and I love animation, and like people freaked out because one of the animators said the word dyke, and they're like, dyke's a slur, and I'm like, when did dyke become a freaking slur? Like, when did that happen? Was that this year? I'm sorry, what now? And so like it's always constantly changing, and so like it's so hard to even stay up on top of like the movements within our own movement. And so then when we clash with like other people and younger people, like I was trying to have this conversation of like, why is dyke a slur now? And people were like, well, you keep saying the D word. I'm like, look, I'm just wanting to learn because I don't understand why we're having this conversation when I've gone I'm 33. I've been out since I was like 16. Like I've gone this whole time and that's never been a thing. So yeah, I mean, I think there's so much of a constantly changing culture while trying to hold on to a space of our own, while trying to welcome in like new sexualities, and like as we understand like asexuality is a spectrum. I'm ace, and I don't even know everything on the ace spectrum. So like there's so much.
It's true. I always try to live with, you know, take things with the spirit in which they are intended. And if someone's not meaning to be insulting, let them have that moment to grow and learn. It's a hard thing to do sometimes, but I've talked about it on this podcast before. Whenever I meet that adversity, I try myself to be the strong one in that situation and be the person to be the educator in that moment. And as you said it beautifully, I mean, it's an ever evolving thing, because sexuality and gender is ever evolving as we meet and grow and learn to meet more people, and we as a community are at its very center, so we have to change first, but we are also individuals in that community who also need our own time to grow and change. And and I just real quick want to let the audience know that the reason Hope probably is sharing the same brain with Ian is because in our little Zoom call here, Ian is playing Peter, and below them is Hope playing the part of Bobby. So Hope is just learning from their older sibling.
I love it. Awesome.
I think
Scott, Scott gets to be Alice.
There you go. Just do some quirky head nods.
Or if we were on Hollywood Squares, you'd get to be Paul Lynn. So hey, I think win-win.
Scott, I know you wanted to.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to add some things, Scott.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I have so much to talk about from what Ian said and Hope said and you said. So I guess the beginning topic was kind of this infighting between the Mandos. And as a bi person, I've obviously had to deal with my whole life. I'm like, okay, I'll just date women. That's acceptable, right? I'll date women. It'll be easy. I'll be quote straight, trying to get my fingers up in the camera, quote straight. And then I'm like, I meet a woman and I'm like, well, how do I bring them around my parents? How do I bring them around my friends? Because then I am straight. And then if some point in my life I need to date a man, well, shoot, now I'm gay. They don't believe me. What is this? So I'm like, okay, I'll try and I'll try and date men. So I date men and I'm like, well, I can't bring any around anyone because I'm not gay. Everyone thinks I'm straight. So you kind of get into this, and I've had people on both sides of the aisle, I guess. I've had gay men tell me, that's not real. You're in a phase. I'm not dealing with your baggage. And I've had women be like, okay, that's weird for me. I had a girl on a date once, and she was like, because I think I dress very nicely. I worked retail for 10 years, so it's just a side effect. But she was like, you dress better than me. I'm like questioning your sexuality, and I froze. I didn't know what to do in this, because I know that's the worst thing that could happen to a bi person, because you're like, no, I am. I don't know what's happening. So there's all of that mixed with, you have not only the outer world, and then you have your infighting, and you're trying to manage these 2 or even 3 or 4 different ways. Because like I said, pansexuality is new to me. I would learn from a lot of you on here, because I identify just as bisexual. And so you have all those instances where you have to do that. And then to Brian's point
this
about
is the right
always
podcast
learning,
to call it an awakening.
Recently, I've had, I would call it an awakening, but trans lives have come up a lot more, and I never realized how at risk they are, and just all of these awful hate crimes and things that happen to trans people. And I used to not bat an eye at that. I was like, they're just the T. I don't know. They're just part of us, right? And then it came up more and more lately, and I was like, well, who am I to decide who's more at risk or not? I'm bisexual. I'm the unicorn of the group. Nobody even thinks I exist. And so now I'm like this. I'm trying to follow all these trans issues, and I'm really trying to stick up for these people because I'm trying to learn. I didn't realize that this was an issue, and so I think, like you said, it's always an opportunity for everyone to learn. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea that there was a spectrum to asexuality until Hope mentioned it. So I'm still totally learning that.
My favorite thing is when you're like, oh, I'm bisexual and I like all genders, and people are like, but there's only 2, and you're like, no, no, there's not. And then there's the whole thing of it's so tiring that you want to teach people these things, but people normal straight heterosexual people, they're not doing their own research too. So then it's so tiring having to continuing to educate people at the same time. And at some point you just want to be like, well, just do your own research, but they're not. And then so it's a whole thing.
even my fiance is gay. My fiance is gay, and even like when we go out or with our friends or whatever, he'll, to make it easier, because again, you don't want to go into a conversation and say, I'm gay, he's bi, but he always calls us the gays or we're gay or whatever. And I'm like,
It is.
all right, like, whatever. I know that you don't mean it negatively, but I am bisexual. And to me, that is important. And part of it, I guess, is, I don't know what part of it is, but to me, it's very important. And I don't like to be called something I don't identify as, and he doesn't mean it in a negative way, but I'm just like, all right, just remember this. And he's like, all right, I get it.
I actually I call myself bi-pan,
Yep.
but like if I know I'm not in a group of queer people, I usually just call myself bi, so I don't have to actually explain what pansexuality is.
Even when I came out to my dad, I was like, oh, I'm bisexual. And I was like, do you know what that means? Like, do we need to have a conversation first? And he said he did, and then he told me later he didn't. He had to Google it after I left. And I was like, oh my God.
Streets are at it again.
Straight nonsense.
They are.
I think a lot of the issues, and like you know, we were talking about sort of intra conflict within the LGBT community. I think a lot of it is because, and it kind of ties back to what I was saying last week about colonialism and about the idea of like the dominant culture makes the rules, because I feel like we've kind of had this binary mindset imposed on us when human existence is not binary. Like that's not, it's just a way of thinking that sort of simplifies things for people who want to be in power. And I think that, like, because a lot of the time biphobia and panphobia and even transphobia that exists within the LGBT community, I think it comes from this idea that everything is binary and you have to fit into one or the other. And so if someone says like, no, it's not just about your orientation or your gender anymore. It becomes challenging someone's entire worldview because they've chosen to make binarism a fundamental building block of their identity, the way they see the world, the way they organize the information that's presented to them every day.
Which goes back to like the censoring of like school systems and how information is taught.
Exactly. So it's like the cure for that is to dismantle binarism and have people recognize, okay, everything is a spectrum. Sexuality is a spectrum. Gender is a spectrum. You know, even neurodiversity is a spectrum. So once you can get people to accept that concept, it kind of inoculates them, I find, against those types of conflicts, because it no longer becomes central to their own identity or their own worldview to have to put people into one category or another. Because I do think that a lot of there is a significant portion of the gay, queer, lesbian community that really sees queer people as just straight people, but a different flavor. You know, and then that's when we get into the whole thing about like, oh, well, is the political fight for marriage a fight worth having? Or, you know, and you get these conflicts with people who have this really radical idea of like overhauling society versus queer people who are like, well, I just want to have all the things straight people have.
You know,
those are two different goals.
And that's a really interesting topic, because that's the way I ever saw myself being able to have a family. Is I said, well, I have to marry a woman because I can't get married, I can't have kids, and now luckily all these things are possible. But I was like, well, I can only live half my life. And it's not saying that being bi is 50-50, because it is not. But that's an interesting topic you bring up.
You know, I'm curious what you think about this, Marquis, because you were in a relationship for a long time as well, like Tom and I were, before we were even allowed to get married. And that concept, you know, Tom and I talked about this, and of course we're fighting for marriage equality, whatever you need to call it that day. Like, I was never okay with the civil union. If you're going to make something, then make something the same for everybody. Otherwise, I don't want it. I'm not. Yeah. If you need to change the other name to make yourself feel better and have marriage be a word that's given to you by your church, okay, I'm cool with that. Like, I don't necessarily like it, but the government piece of paper needs to be the exact same thing coming down my way. And that was something Tom and I always wanted, obviously. Then it became a reality. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if this is solely unique to Tom and I, we're like, well, I don't know if I want it now, because I'm seeing all these people jump on the train that and I feel weird. It's a hard thing to talk about because it was something all of us fought for so long. But, you know, we had seen people who met like I'm not joking, 2-3 weeks ago, and now they're getting married. And I always personally had a hard time with that because there were a lot of people who put in the work a lot of times before, and quote unquote normal society would also look at a couple who just met 2 weeks ago getting married as a weird thing. So why are we celebrating it over here when we really just got this? Like, I felt a moral responsibility to all those people who came before me, who many of them literally gave their lives so I could have this privilege and this right, that we didn't even get married right away. And it wasn't until we formed a family that we were like, okay, this is why the fight was necessary, because we are about to adopt a child who we do not want one parent on there as a step parent and the other one as this. And God forbid something happens somewhere in the future and all of a sudden there is this hierarchy between parents. Because as two gay men who are a little bit older, who people come to us and see that we have children, probably more Jack than the other two, just because he looks like he could be biologically one of our children. It's like there's this assumption that one of us was married before and we biologically had a child and the other's the step parent, and that isn't our story. But you know, it was all of a sudden marriage wasn't about love anymore, because Tom and I, quite frankly, didn't need that anymore. We didn't need society to look at us and say, approved. We now see you as a couple, because we had fought through that already. And it became a tactical decision, which is so not romantic, which is why we got married in under 4 minutes. And I'm probably still waiting on my honeymoon. But Mark, I'm curious about you, because y'all were together a long time too.
Yeah, it's like when people ask us now, like, well, like, how long have you been married? I don't tell them 6 years because it was 2014. I say 23 years because that's how long we've been together. And to me, saying it's marriage, we've always said married. We've always said we were married to one another, even though there was not the legal protection. But the legal protection is what we lost sleep over, because it was the thing that kept you up thinking, what happens if he's in the hospital? And we live in Alabama. You know, this is a pretty conservative place. So what happens if I find myself at the mercy of somebody taking care of him in a hospital who doesn't acknowledge that I'm his husband or that I'm his partner? So that was why the legal battle was so important to us. But in terms of the way that we, you know, talk to each other and related to other people within our close, you know, circle of friends, it was always, we were the married couple, the old married couple.
Yeah, I'm curious how that is for like a younger generation. I'm really happy that they can just enjoy marriage like everybody else got to enjoy marriage. And it wasn't, you know, I think being on the front end of that movement, we didn't necessarily get to enjoy it in that same way that hopefully going forward a younger group of people will, and it will just be something that, and hopefully it by definition of being such a centralized part of our society, being married, and now that everyone has the right to get married, at least here, that maybe will help normalize some of those other conversations, and that front end barrier will already be, you know, is kind of erased now, and maybe it will leave room for a little more of this discussion of the nuance that needs to happen now, because before it was a very black and white issue, but that was in some ways maybe how we had to go about the fight. And it's similar to what they were talking about in The Mandalorian. One version of the Mando saw it a very black and white, we are numbers and we are warriors. That is it. It was just like Pre-Vizsla, and that's how, and oddly enough, the same actor played both those characters and what they represent. And the armor being the ancient wise one saying, yes, that is who we were. But that ideology almost got us all killed. And now here we are struggling, and we are trying to rebuild ourselves. How do we want to rebuild ourselves? Do we want to rebuild ourselves in this past image, or can we look to our Mando here and be something moving forward? Which maybe, hopefully right now in society, that's what we're doing. Is it going to be, where are we going from here? 2020, the dumpster fire that it is on the precipice of becoming something different. So what do we want to do? Do we want to go back to our old ways that clearly are flipping failing us? Or are we all ready to come together and do the work to build a new future of what that may or may not look like? Kayla and Toby, did you have something to add?
Okay. For the younger perspective of like gay marriage and issues specific to that, I know that for me, I was a very politically involved student. I believe, my second year of high school when gay marriage actually got approved. But up until then, I was very active in debating many people at my school about it, because I went to a very strict private religious school. And obviously, me coming out of the closet caused issues there, let alone apparently the idea of me wanting to get married. So a lot of my middle school experience and early high school years was me, in an English class or a history class, and we're suddenly talking about politics, and my entire class is telling me that they don't think I deserve to get married, and I'm 11, and I'm like, cool, thank you for this emotional scarring. But what was interesting is when it did happen, it was a kind of nice I told you so moment, at least for me and the other queer people around me, just kind of like, oh, interesting. Good to know.
I love the hair.
But I didn't expect to happen so quickly was that queer people like 3 or 4 years younger than me had no knowledge that it was even a fight. Like it literally was like an overnight change of like, I was a senior in high school mentoring some younger queer kids, and they didn't even know that it only got approved, a few years ago. They were fully like, this has always been a thing. Of course I can get married. Why wouldn't I be able to get married? And that mentality made it was bittersweet. It made me so happy to like, yeah, why wouldn't you be able to get married? You're right. Like, this is amazing. Like, keep this attitude forever. But it was also just kind of like this odd moment of like, already the struggle is being removed from the equation. Like, already the idea that so many people went through this and had to literally fight for this was moved out of the way, because I don't remember a time where it wasn't on the floor of some state government and at least one state had approved gay marriage, at least for me. But like, they're kids who don't even know that it was a fight, and I don't know why. That feels very odd to me, the idea that already, like, 3 or 4 years after, no one even knows that it was so difficult. It was so hard to get there. And then,
well, we predicted that it was going to be like that. When we would talk about, like, me and my older friends, we would talk about like, oh, well, there's going to come a time in 20 years where like the younger generation won't even know that they won't even think it was a big deal. I didn't know that. I mean, hearing your story, I didn't know it was something that happened so quickly. That's very illuminating.
And then on the flip side of that, I obviously, again, not politically inclined in the slightest, had no idea anything was going on, but I did know about the fight for marriage only because in the deep Southern roots that I was born in, I had an aunt who was a lesbian, and she really, really badly wanted to marry her girlfriend. And it was a huge thing when that happened. I remember being at my dad's house and seeing it on the news. I turned on the news and they were like, hey, gay marriage got legalized. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad none of my Southern family is home right now and I can just enjoy this moment in peace. And I was a junior in high school, and I came back the next year to school, and I was like I remember the thought of like, oh, now I can marry the person that I end up falling in love with, because I'm like, there's no way in hell that as a trans person I'm ever going to be allowed to marry up until that point. Which, I mean, is a whole other freaking issue with being trans in general. Stop touching the mic.
I
know, but it's making the sound, my guy.
That's about being married in general. Touching the mic.
I love you both so much.
That's marriage, folks.
Absolutely. Yep.
But Yeah, no, it is. But then, just to follow up with that, you know, my whole family situation is a nightmare. But the one good thing that came out of it is my sister, who is 10 years younger than me, like to the T. She's turning 12 in about a month. She came to me and she's like, "Hey, I think I'm bi," and I was like, "That's freaking great. You're 11 though. How did you figure this out so early?" And she's like, "Well, it's commonplace. It's commonplace at her school." And she lives in Washington, but she used to live, you know, here in Georgia with me. It's commonplace for kids to be like, you know, I'm a lesbian, I'm gay, I am trans, I am, you know, agender, I'm, you know,
there are like students in her class, like she's in fifth grade. There's students that go by they, them pronouns, and the teachers are so okay with it. And it's so beautiful to see.
It threw me off because, like, I remember when I was first deciding my gender, and you know, I originally was.
You were when you were first going through all that.
Yeah, when I was first going through that in high school, I was comfortable being gender fluid, and I still kind of fluctuate with gender fluidity and being just fully trans masc. But I remember, like, I came to school dressed differently. I was in cosplay at the time, so I had a wig, a short-haired wig, and like my teachers were looking at me weird, and my friends were really confused, and the only other gay person in the group, because my other friend hadn't come out yet, was making jokes about it with me, and it was the only person that, like, you know, kind of got along with me on that aspect. And I got shamed so hard the first day, and now that I retreated back into the closet for the rest of high school.
But now there are, you know, fifth grade classes where they ask pronouns every day before class starts,
and they don't know.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and they don't know that this fight happened, but they know that they have the ability to talk freely about this, and know that if someone tries to shut them down, they're in the wrong, not the person who's actually being open about their gender or their sexuality or any kind of spectrum that they fly onto.
Do you think the reason that, you know, we have such infighting and stuff like that is because when we see this next generation, which we fight so hard for the next generation to be able to, like, live so openly and have classrooms where they have pronouns and stuff like that. But do you think there's also like a little bit of jealousy that they don't have to fight as hard as we do or as the previous generations did? Because I was thinking about this, and I was writing a piece about it because a show that I've been analyzing recently is The Owl House, which is a show on Disney that has the first openly bisexual lead and a lesbian. Their names are Luz Noceda and Amity Blight. And I was writing this piece about it and how watching them have a prom episode where you have these two young women, one's bi, one's a lesbian, openly dancing on Disney. And I remember thinking about how when I was growing up, I grew up with Sailor Moon, but I grew up with Sailor Moon where I was told that Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune were cousins and not lesbians. And they censored that and they hid that. And that was a point where they left in all their flirting scenes too. So they were more comfortable implying incest than letting these two characters be lesbians. And I just remember growing up so angry about that, like having like Toya and Yukito from Card Captors having their gay relationship hidden away. And so when I'm just sitting here watching stuff like The Owl House, where you have these two, when I see Orca and Flix in Star Wars Resistance, when I see Qi'ra that has the gay kiss that saves the universe, like that, literally it's a gay kiss that saves the universe. And I do constantly find myself jealous because I didn't get to grow up with that, but I'm also equally so happy that the next generation has this kind of content to grow up with. So I wonder, like, do you think that that's part of like why there is some infighting? Because it's like, you know, we went through these struggles, but you have it so easy now. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I think some of the jealousy, it actually is rooted in trauma. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen, well, because one of the things that really hit me, like when I watched I've completely lost her name. That stand-up comedian that's so hot right now. Her special was Douglas.
Hannah, yes.
She's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right, Hannah Gadsby. That's right, yes. So when I watched her first special, she talks about how when you experience homophobia as a child, it stays with you forever. Like, she has never found a way to heal that in herself. And it made me realize, and it's like, we have all these narratives, you know, like we talk about it gets better and we focus on the social progress that has been made. But I feel like we don't have tools or language to address the trauma that happens to somebody when someone that they trust and love in their life looks at them and says there is something inherently wrong with who you are.
Is that Renee Brown over there?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually just kind of. I mean, like we're just now starting to have the tools to talk about that openly. Like, and I think so much of that is the internet. Like, we finally actually have this way to like connect with each other. Like, we're doing this because of the internet, and like having this ability to just at any point find groups and stuff like that. We're just now starting to get to that point to where we are actually for the first time really understanding like gender's a spectrum and sexuality is a spectrum.
I think we've kind of been dancing around this, but I really think that's why the scene that like I'm coming into this realization as I'm speaking that's why the flashbacks to Din's childhood trauma are so crucial to the narrative of having being present for the forging of his armor and him coming into his identity. It resonates because it's an echo of how we, every time we connect fully to our queerness and to our identities as queer people, you know, in a way that trauma echoes. We have to revisit it every time because it's always present.
All right, so Emma, you said something really beautiful that honestly I think I've been trying to articulate since the start of this podcast of my own homophobia, because I've been recently speaking, not recently, since the start of the podcast, I've been speaking a lot about like representation. Representation is, I'm realizing how much more important it is as we are discussing the podcast, because before it's always been a selfish thing. I've talked about this, that Star Wars has always been a selfish thing. And having kids a little later in life, I've had to realize, oh my God, it's not just about me. And now having a podcast, oh my God, it's not just about me and my feelings about Star Wars. It's about talking about everything else for everyone else. And I have oftentimes felt, was I even worthy of not worthy? I would say, you know, I never needed to see myself in Star Wars before. I don't know if there needs to be a queer character, and I don't want that need to outweigh my love for Star Wars, because Star Wars is so incredibly important to me on a personal level. But you've just said it so well. That's my own homophobia talking back at me. And it's a process of like, I didn't necessarily think I had scars. I mean, I've been out most of my life at this point in time, and I've always been out and proud, I guess, but I maybe not fully internally. Maybe it's very much an exterior only kind of thing, and there's some stuff inside that we all still need to probably tackle with every single day, you know?
Oh, honey, being gay is to be like having scars. Like, we wear scars like we wear jewelry.
Yep.
So.
Yep. It's part of our armor.
Yeah, and that's why actually I love the scene of him getting his new armor, because that was always the coming out scene to me. Like, I love Mando's old armor so much, but like that was like his. But like I want to see. I kind of hope he gets to keep pieces of his old armor with him as well, because we just can't shut off our old life for like new shiny armor. We have to. Those any traumas that we go through like is so much part of us, and it ripples into how we are as adults and who we are now and how we identify. I mean, and as something as simple as like being queer makes us question so much. Like, I like a girl and she knows I like it. She knows I like her, but she does not like me back. And now I question like everything I write to her. like, is she gonna read this in the wrong way and I will damage our friendship forever? Like, it's a process, and we can't, like, we can like make ourselves look good and like shining armor and stuff like that, but we're always going to have that broken, dirty Mudhorn armor somewhere like behind us that's going to be part of us.
Yeah.
No, but I was going to say, I feel like living in a heterocentric society, when you have a queer identity, you kind of have this sinister lens put on you. Like how people like about the stereotype of how like queer people are sexual predators, you know, that's still around. That was very, very prominent in the 50s, right? And obviously after, but you know, like it's been dissipating to a certain extent, but like it's still there. And like, you know, in our own community, we have these discussions about, you know, like about sort of how queerness is inherently sexualized. So it's like if you have like a property, like a TV show or something that's about, you know, a married couple with, well, you know, like the Fosters, for example, right? Like there's people that won't let their kids watch the Fosters because the parents are a same-sex couple and they think that that inherently sexualizes the show, or it gives it like this very sinister kind of lens that if it was just about a heterosexual people that had foster kids with life problems, there wouldn't be an issue, because you know it's the very queerness of it that makes it upsetting to people, you know. And so it's like you could be like, you know, eating a cone of vanilla ice cream, and if it's a queer person doing it, somehow there's something wrong about it.
Suddenly they're eating vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at the way they lick it.
you know, and that kind of goes to what you were talking about, Hope, about how, like, you know, you have to like double check and analyze and parse every single message that you send to this person, because she's going to be reading it through the filter of your sexuality.
Yeah, like she tweeted like this like cute sweater, and she was like, "I'm so excited about this sweater," and I just want to be like, "Oh, it's so cute," and then I was like, "What if she thinks it's not the right kind of cute? Oh God!" And so I just didn't say anything at all, and I just stared like a dumbass. Gay panic is so real.
Yeah. Well, speaking of gay panic, this is a great transition. Good job, Hope. So
actually, like, can I just say, like, guys, just please look up like clips of Amity Blight from the Owl House, which is just the most perfect way of like showing gay panic in real time, where she has this crush on a girl, and it's just such a perfect show. And I'm just like, this is real. And for all the young gays out there, gay panic never goes away.
Well, on that hopeful note, we've brought up before, and unfortunately we lost some of our people to speak to this, but this group can close this episode off with. So Ian had mentioned earlier, like, if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. And we have been discussing some of the problems within our own community. But do we feel, and this is something I want all of us to mention is before we go, like, do we feel I'm sure all of us had moments of need, that our found family and those are immediately around it and those not so immediate have come to our aid when we need to. You know, I just real quick, I think about the education that we've been talking about, and we had Stonewall was this big mainstream movie. We've mentioned Stonewall here a few times already. It's a very important thing, and this movie that's supposed to educate the masses on our plight, on what it is to be us, completely misrepresented everything going on to make it more convenient for the society at large, which here we go again. We were just attacked. It's the client dangling the best car in front of us, and here you go. But we're not going to give you all of it, because that still makes me too uncomfortable, and I'm the one with the power. So I'm going to present you in the way that I can present you. So do you feel, unlike, you know, I wish there was more of an outroar for that film when it came out. Maybe it's because there was no blockbuster money behind it and it didn't do very well anyways, thank God, because it did not represent us the right way. Do you feel that we come together when those times are needed? Mark P., let's start with you.
What was the movie that you were referring to, by the way, that you were saying?
It was called Stonewall, if I remember correctly, right?
Was it the one by Emmerich, the one that came out about a year or two ago? That was a train wreck. It was a mess. It had in no way just caught the pulse of what you needed to see as far as community, and that, like, I think shows that we've seen since come out in the last couple of years, like, I think Pose is one of the most positive voices that I've seen out there as far as community, showing what my time period was like when I was growing up. I mean, there have been times I'm in tears watching these things happen on screen. You know, like when the characters had to go get their HIV test. I remember what that was like, having to wait 2 weeks to find out whether you were getting your death sentence or not. I mean, and just other things. The lingo in it is funny to me, because the lingo that I used back then, which I see a lot in this show, it's like people are using it now because of things like Drag Race have come to the forefront. There's so much of our culture that is readily accepted and part of just every day-to-day talk. I mean, I see straight people talking about Grindr. I see them talking about drag moms, or this. I'm like sitting here, I'm like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation with these folks. Like, there was a time when it was our own secret language. It was the way we knew we had a safe space to be able to talk to somebody. Or like, oh, I can talk about this. I can be myself. Like, so yeah, there's a whole sense of that. So sorry if I'm kind of going off on my own thing, but go ahead.
It's been this entire episode. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And then seeing this as we get to the end of the episode, and we see like this, we almost see like a virtual Mandalorian pride parade. Just everybody comes
100%.
out. It's like one of us has put their neck on the line. That's our family, and we're all going to get behind this person, and we're going to make sure that we all go together, led by this new example of what we can do and where we can go. And like, they said, like, well, you're out now. You've put yourself out there. Where are you going to go? Well, we're going to figure that out. We're here for you right now. And it resonated so strongly this time I saw it. Like, I saw the episode. I already loved this episode, but when I saw that again, it just all came together for me. I was like, it is probably one of the strongest of all of the episodes, and I have to give it. I'm so thankful that Deborah Chow directed it the way she did, because man, she is fabulous. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that.
I wasn't going to do this.
100%. Thank you.
We just keep dancing around it for this entire conversation. So, and finally, just you talking about secret language. I'm going to take us back to episode 2, because there's a reason I love these Jawas. These Jawas are so queer to me because that's like why, like, they're played off as like this kind of like gross, weird thing, but that's just because the Mando and Kuil are the normal society, and they're the queer people looking in on their secret society, their secret rituals, their language, and to the outside it seems sometimes weird and gross. And like so much of like my journey is having to come to terms like with my own body. For one, I know this is an audio medium, but I currently have long hair. This is not what Hope looks like. Hope has short hair and has like an undercut and stuff, but this is just me not being able to have the financial means to keep up with it. And I also, I have a medical condition. I have GERD. So, I sometimes can't control how burpy I am. So for a long time, I was so, ashamed of this medical condition that I have, which is, why we need to have conversations, not only about normalize how we talk about our bodies, but also normalizing, talking about how we talk about pronouns and stuff like that, so we don't have problems like Gina Carano. So I've taken the time to cultivate such a safe space to, especially with my podcast, my podcast, J Guys and Jedi, we are the quote unquote classiest podcast in the galaxy. So if I do have something where my GERD is acting up and I just release this huge burp, my co-podcaster is just that was awesome, and it's a safe space for us together. And it's really actually helped me come into my own, to feel comfortable in my own body, and to realize I shouldn't be ashamed of a medical condition I have, as we also shouldn't be ashamed of having to be queer, and we should all be having a safe space and a safe area to where we can be a little bit gross like Jawas, and as we can figure out our own secret languages, as we all understand how we feel about each other. So I love these Jawas because I totally get them so much. And to bring that back to about how we were talking about how do we come together at the end, well, yeah, I've been feeling that recently within my own queer community with Harry Potter. I have a Harry Potter tattoo, and I still wear it proudly, even though J.K. Rowling is a effing turf and just horribly transphobic as well. And the reason I still proudly wear this is because I worked in an organization called the Harry Potter Alliance. We were, you know them, I see you shaking your head. we were calling like Massachusetts when the state was up for to vote on gay marriage. Like we were sending planes to Rwanda to give books to the villages that survived the genocide. We sent planes to Haiti after the earthquake. So I've seen the good of the Harry Potter community. I've seen gay people within the Harry Potter, even in the past of like J.K. Rowling, even within our own Star Wars community. Look what we just raised $10,000 for the Transgender Law Center. Like I've seen the good in these societies. So like when we do have somebody who is actually like really crappy within our own communities and stuff like that, we do come together when we have this like thrown at us. And like I'm still a very proud Hufflepuff. And you know what? If you mess with anybody in my community, there is no puff. There's just claws that come out, and I won't huffle with you anymore. Yay, Hufflepuff! I was actually wearing my Hufflepuff sandwich shirt earlier, and I was like, oh, I need to switch it to my Star Wars like flowery shirt. But no, like.
well, let's let the Hufflepuff stick together. Emma, what are your thoughts?
All right. What are my thoughts? Well, there's definitely been times in my life when my community has come out for me, and my wife is chronically ill. She has multiple sclerosis, and when she was diagnosed, it was actually because she had an extremely, extremely bad attack. She was hospitalized. She couldn't move the right side of her body at all, like nothing, like the entire right side of her body, not an eyebrow, not a finger, nothing. And so like with treatment and physical rehabilitation, she's got most of her function back now, but she was laid pretty low for a long time, and people came together and they like donated to a fundraiser so that I could afford to take time off work, because my situation, like that time, was unpaid. So people helped us to like cover my salary while I was taking care of my wife. So I've definitely been the recipient of like very generous community support, and I know the transformative power that has. But to go back to Mandalorian, I think it's really powerful that the armor gives them this leadership and gives them a new vision of what Mandalorians can be, because if you know anything about that society, like especially considering that Din was adopted by Death Watch, they're very isolationist, right? And they're very like it's very self-contained philosophy, like a lot of sort of warrior cultures are. That's a common tendency. And to see them go out and defend Din sort of for the sake of an outsider and a being that's not even of their race is revolutionary. Yep. And so I feel like that was a really powerful moment, and that really, but it also speaks to the power and the influence that the armor has, right? That she can inspire them with this new vision, even though everything from their heritage tells them to sort of be self-interested and only really, I mean, like the collective is important, but the collective does not include outsiders. The collective only includes Mandalorians. So the fact that they're willing to put themselves out there, literally and figuratively, for the sake of a being that is not a part of their society, that's amazing.
It's wonderful. Ian.
So that's what I have to say.
I think for me, this relates in with like my recovery and the fact that there are LGBTQ specific meetings or spaces that I can go to if I'm not really feeling comfortable or not really feeling up to dealing with some of the regular more often than not straight and cis hetero recovery community. There's this other space that still values my existence as well as my well-being at the same time, which is like extremely profound and beautiful and amazing.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's beautiful. All right, Marquis. Take us out.
So, to speak to the question of whether the LGBTQ community comes together when needed, I think Hope and Emma have provided great examples of how that does happen on a daily basis within the community at large, but we already have a historical precedent for when it did happen, when it was most needed, and that was the AIDS crisis. There's no other event that has taken place in the last 40 years that affected the queer community as much as that one did. And it happened at a time when literally no one was going to help us but ourselves. And people from different backgrounds came together. Lesbians, stepped up and started taking care of gay men dying in hospitals when their families wouldn't come to see them. So there's, when I think of that scene at the end of this episode where, the Mandalorians all come together, that's what I think about. I think about that sort of the rallying of the troops to say, we're under fire. And this is what's going to be needed for us to survive this, is to put aside our differences and to come together. And I'm glad Emma was mentioning the armorer, because one of my favorite moments in an earlier scene is when there's some disagreement. There's the disagreement and the conflicts happening when, whatever his name is, the Jon Favreau Mandalorian, is accusing Din of being consorting with the enemy of the Empire. The Empire are seen as their oppressors. And I think at some point he may mention that it was cowardly or something. And the part that I really like is the armor says, to choose the path of a Mandalorian is to be both hunter and prey. And no one who chooses this path is a coward. Yeah. And that resonates with me because of growing up my whole life, hearing straight people talk about being gay as if it's a choice. And the thing that I always would try to tell people, even sometimes well-meaning, where they describe it as a lifestyle choice or whatever, and they don't really mean to say that it's not something you're born with, but I always say, I was born gay, but I chose to be honest. That was the choice that I made.
Very well said.
I like the moment where Din is, he's surrounded by gunfire, and he looks down at Baby Yoda, and he thinks he's probably going to die in that moment. Yeah. But he wants to make eye contact because this little guy is worth dying for him.
Yeah.
That's the moment where he's being the most true to himself and his past. And he says, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die as a Mandalorian. I'll die defending something that I believe in.
I wanted to add something to what Mark said real quickly, because what you brought up, you made me think about the Mandalorians coming in to fight to assist. When we were, in the middle of the AIDS crisis and we didn't have the medicines that we needed, the coverage, people weren't as aware, and needed to be more widespread. It took our more political and militant wings of the queer community to come out and fight for us. You had your ACT UP, you had your Queer Nations, these louder voices that they had more, I wouldn't say more fight in them. They just knew how to hone that and make it happen. Those voices spoke loudly for us. They put their necks on the line so that we could finally cross this, making people more aware of what it is we were going through and how big of a problem this was and how it was just wiping people out. And, no matter what you thought of our community, we needed help. And this involved making everybody see that there were people that were being your brothers, your sisters, your family members were being affected by this. Even if you had, thrown them out of your house or whatever, the fact is these folks were dying, they needed help. And I look back at that and how much they fought for us, and that I'm it's a little sad that people have forgotten that part of it, because
we're already doing
someday
that now in 2020.
We're gonna have to do that again, and in some ways we kind of have to do that now. Yeah, we're doing it now. It's all happening all over again now, but there's so much more misinformation that it's scary that people just so quick to turn their head the other way. Oh, it hasn't happened to me. And you know what? We're repeating that same damn mistake again. But I just hope that this time, that we do have something someone's had to come forward just like that to be able to like knock sense into people and be like, look, this is a bigger problem than you think it is, and we have to do this together, otherwise we're going to fail miserably. So anyway.
Well, thank you guys, thank you, and thank you for all your time again, as always. Thank you for being open and honest. We really do. I think these last two weeks have really shared ourselves and things that are not always easy to talk about. So please know that I appreciate that very much. Tom appreciates that very much. And I really do believe that this will do some good, especially today's episode. I think will really do some good for people out there who aren't of our experience to understand what it's like. I will apologize now that this is probably the least run episode of a rewatch specifically to chapter 3, because Lord knows we didn't talk about chapter 3, but we talked about what at the heart of chapter 3 is all about. And beyond the pew pews, beyond the arc of the story, this is how this story resonated to our group of people. And this show is so queer coded, and it is our story, and just like our story, you can't just draw a straight line through it. So I really appreciate all of your time. We ran a lot longer than we had planned on, but there was really beautiful things being said, so thank you. And thank you for helping give our story a little bit of a louder voice out there in the Star Wars community. So we appreciate you all very much. Those of you that are here, do you want to give out your shout outs for your Twitter handles, your Instagram handles? And again, I will put these in the show notes, and we appreciate you. Marquis, let's start with you.
Yeah, you can follow me at Twitter at DJMMarquis, MMARQUIS.
Hope.
I am going to apologize for next week because I ship Mando and Omera so freaking hard. They need to have babies. I'm so sorry now for next week. I love them. You can find me at Hope Molinax, and I also have my website, geekygirlexperience.com, and I'm also the co-host of J Guys and Jedi, so which is also, that's my Twitter for J Guys.
Mark P.
Hi, you can find me on Twitter and IG at I am El Diablito.
Ian.
You can find me on Twitter at iGallagher321.
Fantastic. Emma, take us out.
I'm on Twitter at Foxler, FOXFLEUR. Oh, and also ship who you want. Never apologize for shipping.
1000%. All right, gang.
Free ship. There's room for everyone.
Until next week, on the count of 3, let's all give a big round up of a drink up. All right, 1, 2, 3. Drink up. And we're back with news. The part of Robin Williams will be played by Dudley Moore.
Turns out, don't be looking for that movie, people, because it wasn't Robin Williams at all. It was Daryl Hannah, Paul Reiser, Dudley Moore, and oh man, I just lost it on my phone.
Okay. Well, just in case, dear listeners, if you are curious why we jump right back there, is because we record the front end and the back end of this episode at a later date. So that happened just moments ago, but through the wonders of editing and podcasting, it appears that this conversation happened 2.5 hours later. So I just want to say thank you again to all of our guests on this roundtable. This is just a real treat to see what this conversation is turning into, and I'm very, very stoked to see what comes next week when we all get together again. I'm really thrilled. And I'm very grateful.
Yes, I really think that people are going to really see the mindset of a queer person, and by the end of this episode. So I think that this is really just this was really great stuff today.
I agree. I mean, it went way longer than we had anticipated, but there was just such
It went by real fast, though.
It really did. So hopefully it did on your end, because honestly, I think you said it great, Tom. I think this was a really wonderful episode, and I'm just grateful that they're sharing the way they are, because it really is giving a perspective of walking in someone else's shoes. I mean, there's people of the trans experience. I have no idea what that is like, but I'm learning so much just from them sharing their story. So, I mean, honestly, this is turned into to be a much bigger and more important thing than I had anticipated.
Awesome.
Don't forget to follow us at all of our socials at Serving Pink Milk on Twitter and Instagram. Visit our website at servingpinkmilk.com. Don't forget to write, review, hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Those things really do help. These important conversations deserve to get in more ears, so please do those reviews. Take a few minutes. We would appreciate it, and it will really, really will help get these critical voices out there to the massive fandom that is Star Wars. So until next week, we thank you very much, and don't forget to look up their socials as well in the show notes down below. All right, until next week, and drink up.
Drink up.
Bye.
Bye.